Good, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, Yud Aleph Elul. Today, uh, we're learning Perek Ches, chapter 8 of Mishnayos Brachos, as we continue our journey through Shas Mishnayos. Today's shir is sponsored Lila Nishvas Aaron Nachum ben Simcha HaKohen, Yeshua Mordechai ben Shepsel, Brachos Sarah ben Shmuel Leib, and Binyamin Moshe ben Yosef ben Elishos Haveliyah. Today also is the yahrzeit of my shver, his first yahrzeit of Yehuda ben Yosef Mordechai HaKohen. May the Shammai have an aliyah as the year of Velas comes to an end today. May the family know of no more tsar. Amen. Okay, Perek Ches talks about the machlokas, several machlokas in disputes between Bais Shammai and Bais Hillel. And the first one talks about the machlokas during a meal. So, Elu Mishnah Aleph, Elu Devarim Shebein Bais Shammai Bais Hillel Besuda. These are the discussions, the disputes between Bais Shammai and Bais Hillel in regards to a meal. We're talking about here the Friday night meal, or the Yontif night meal. Bais Shammai says first you make the bracha on the day, the Kaddish Shabbos, and afterwards you make the bracha on the wine. So Bais Hillel says that the Bais Hillel says first you make the bracha on the wine, then you make the bracha on the day. So the Gemara goes on to discuss what is going on over here, and that Bais Shammai is of the opinion that since the Yontif came in first before you came to wine. First Yontif started before you came to sit down to the meal. Therefore, you make the bracha on the Yontif or Shabbos first, before you make the bracha by Perek. And Bais Hillel says no. That might be true according to Bais Shammai, but Bais Hillel says that the only reason why you're sitting down to have the meal, you can't make kiddush until you have wine. So you have to make the bracha on the wine first before you make the kiddush on the day. Shabbos morning, when we say kedusha rabbah, there's only one bracha that boy Perek, and therefore we're only talking about the nighttime kiddush. Mishnah Bais is going to talk about Tumah and Tahara of the hand. So it's important to know, get a little intro into Tumah and Tahara, that they, according to the Torah, you have what's known as the Avi Avos Tumah is a mace, and Avatuma is one level down from that. Like a nevela, like a dead animal that was ejected, and the sheretz, it's like a rodent or a creepy crawly or a zav, someone has a bodily emission, they become an avatum. It's one level down from a viavos tumah. Then avatum can then translate tumah to people, objects, and then they can then transmit the tumah to other things. But as it goes down in severity, from severity to the Marmekel, it transfers the tumah to less and less things. And there's a much longer discussion over here. But that's all according to the Torah. But the Chachamim, they added on a few more. Under Torah law, if something touches a rishon, then that becomes a sheni. Right? So if you have an object that touches a rishon the tamah, then that object now becomes a sheni. But because a sheni can okay. So then the Chachamim said that if a liquid touches a rishon, then that liquid also becomes a rishon, which can now contaminate every type of food. A sheni can only contaminate um, kochim, but a rishon can contaminate all types of food. So not only that, but they even agree that if a liquid touches a sheni, if a liquid touches a rishon, and the liquid becomes a rishon. But if a liquid touches a sheni, and the liquid goes up a level and becomes a rishon. So the Rabbanim are more machmir than the Torah, which is normal. They even said that when a tame liquid, which can contaminate even an object, that makes it a shame. So this is going to come into effect in a second. The Chacham also made a gezerah that a person's hands are tame at the level of a sheni, and that a person cannot eat bread until he rids his hands of the tumah, which can be done through the process of netilas yadayim, pouring water on one's hands from it has to be from a cup or from a vessel. It can't just be straight from the sink. So the Beis Shammai Beis Hillel they have machlokas as to whether the person wants to drink wine immediately before eating bread at the beginning of the meal, when he should do it netilas yadayim. So that's where we're going into this Mishnah. The Beis Shammai Omrim, was that clear? That's a little more. Okay, we're gonna go ahead. Beis Shammai Omrim, Beis Shammai says, no tlin liyadayim achach mozgin es hakos. Beis Shammai says, first you wash your hands, and then you fill up the cup and make kiddush. The Beis Hillel Omrim, mozgin es hakos achach no tlin liyadayim. The Beis Hillel says, no, first you make kiddush, and afterwards you fill out, you wash your hands. So we go, I mean, most of the world goes according to Beis Hillel, but the Yekis do it the other way. I once went to a Yeki for a Friday night meal where they washed their hands before they made kiddush, and they sat down and they made kiddush, they made boy pergufen and hamotzi, and then Mekasher Shabbos, and I was so like freaked out, like what is going on over here? Granted, it made a lot more sense because it keeps everyone quiet, it keeps them on the seats, and a lot more crowd control wise. But I never went back to them for a suit ever again. I was like, I'm not doing this again. It was a good suit, but I was just not doing that. But anyways, so where was I? Right. So Beis Shammai says the first you wash your hands, and then you pour the cup of wine, because according to Beis Shammai, you have to be matahar your hands before you pick up the cup of wine. But Beis Hillel says that you can touch the outside of the kos. The outside could become tamei, and that's not a problem according to Beis Hillel. It's the inside that you have to be careful. So he's not so concerned about that. Interesting to note that by netilas yadayim, why do we say al netilas yadayim? Okay, we have two brachos with the word netila. Al netilas yadayim and al netilas lulav. Right, so you take out netilas lulav. So you're taking the lulav, you're holding it together to be no toilet, and then you shake it. So what are you saying by al netilas yadayim? What are you taking over that? You're putting water on your hands. So the Shalom answer that's why you need to use a cup or a vessel, because you're being no-tell, you're taking the cup and you're filling it with water and then you're washing your hands. So Al netilas yadayim is a reference to the actual cup that you're taking to wash your hands with. If you only wash your hands just by water in the sink without koch gavra, then you're not Yotze with netilas yadayim. Mishnah Gimel, Beis Shammai Omrim, the next machlok is Mekaneach Yada Bamapa Vanicha Ala Shulchan. Beis Hillel Omrim Ala Keses. Beis Shammai says, okay, so you washed your hands. Okay, now you wash your hands. Now, what do you do with the towel? you dried it with a towel, right? So what do you do with the towel? So according to Bais Shammai, you take the towel and you put it on the table. But Bais Hillel says you put it on the cushion. Yeah, and this dispute is based on another machlokes between Bais Shammai and Hillel, where which is not quoted here. According to Bais Shammai, that you can't eat at a table that is tummy. But Bais Hillel says you can, as long as it's only a shaming. The since Beit Shammai forbid using a table as tamei, people would only use tables that are tahor. Therefore, Beit Shammai would permit you to put the towel on the table because the table is presumably tahor. But Beit Hillel, on the other hand, will allow a person using a tamei table, and therefore you can't put the towel on the table because the table might be tamei, and therefore the moisture itself will become a rishon in contact with the table. Then, when that towel then touches the foods that are on the table, it will contaminate them. Beis Hillel then rules that it's better to put the towel on the cushion where it will not come in contact with food. But Beis Shammai don't like the whole cushion thing because then you have too much midrash where you're coming in contact with the cushion with the seat, and that's a problem for the Beis Shammai. Why don't you just take the towel and either throw it in the garbage can or throw it into the laundry? Like, why is it on the table at all? I guess in the back of the times of the Mishnah, they didn't think about that. I mean, I don't know. When was the last time you took the towel from the teacher's bag and put it on the table? I don't. You wash by the sink, and either you put it to the side in the kitchen, or you throw it out, depending if it's disposable or it's washable. So I don't really fully understand the whole concept over here. Like, putting a dirty towel on the table. It's interesting Mishnah. Mishnah Dalet. Beis Shammai Omer Mechabdin Es Habayis V'Achatach Notin Liyadayim. So now we're talking about at the end of the Suda, right? So we already had Kiddush and we had washing before the Suda and with the towel. Now you finished eating. It's before Birkas Hamazon. What do you do? So Shammai says, first you sweep the room, like you clear out the area where the meal was eaten, and then you wash Ma'amacharonim. Right? Because according to Shammai, if you wash mamachun first, then the water will spill onto the leftover pieces of the food, making them soggy and inedible, and you'll be ruining the food. And Beis Hillel says, Beis Hillel no to the yadayim bias. Beis Hillel says, first you wash your hands, and then you sweep the food. You sweep the room, you clear up the mess. Because the prohibition of ruining food only applies to a kazayas of more. There's no concern that such large pieces will remain. I mean, if you have extra food on the table, the time you're going to clean it up and put it in the fridge or throw it out, whatever, and it's the crumbs that you sweep on the floor. That's not an issue according to Beis Hillel. Mishnah Hay is a very, 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 very interesting one. Beis Shammai. Now we're talking about Havdalah. Okay, you finish the meal. Now you're going on to let's say Motzi Shabbos, Motzi Yontif, Beis Shammai Amrim. What's the order of Havdalah, Ner, Mazon, Besamim, Havdalah? So you only have one cup of wine. Okay, you only have one cup of wine, and you have 2 minutes. You need to Begas Mazon and Havdalah. Okay, so what should the order be? According to Beis Shammai, he says first you make the bracha on the Eish, and then you bench, Begas Mazon. Then you make the bracha on the Samim, and then the bracha of Hamaftir. Beis Hillel Omrim, Ner u'Besamim u'Mazon v'Havdalah. But Beis Hillel says first you make the bracha on the flame, and then the spices. They smell the spices, and then you make bracha of Mazon, and then Havdalah. Right. So everyone agrees that the Ner is first. Everyone agrees that Havdalah is last. But the question is, do you bench before you smell the spices, or do you smell the spices before you bench? Now, interesting here, you don't see anywhere here about wine. when do you make the bracha on the wine? It should be boy pre-gafa. So the Rishonim answered that no, wine always goes with Havdalah. So, but you make the bracha of the wine before Havdalah or after Havdalah? Well, that goes back to the original discussion that we had about Kiddush, right? Mishnah Aleph, we asked the bracha about Kiddush, whether you make the bracha first or you make the Havdalah first. So the same discussion that you had in Mishnah Aleph, applies here too regarding the bracha of wine and Havdalah. So they left that wine over here because that's not relevant for this topic. But according to Shammai, you would make the Havdalah first, and then make the boy Perek later. Interesting because by Sheva Brachos, we know under a chuppah, so by a bris you make a boy Perek first, then you make the bracha of the bris, and by a chasna you make a bracha boy Perek and the Brachos erisid, and then when the summon you have the bracha boy Perek and all the Sheva Brachos, right? Because the bracha boy Perek comes first, but then during Sheva Brachos of the Suda of the rest of the week, not by the chuppah, but the Suda, the boy Perek becomes the last bracha, mistama, because that's really the bracha of boy Perek on Brachos Hamazon, and therefore it's tying together the Brachos Hamazon with the Sheva Brachos, but by the chuppah, it's only the Sheva Brachos by itself, and therefore it could come first. That's interesting to think about. So continuing with Mishnah Hay. So what bracha do you make on fire? Beishamai Omrim Shebara Me'or Ha'esh. The bracha of the fire is that is that who created the illumination of fire. I mean, it was a past event. It was in the past. Bais Hillel Omrim Bari Me'or Ha'esh. But Bais Hillel says no, it's the present who creates the illumination of fire. According to Beis Shammai, you say the past tense because it refers to the very creation of fire, which took place in the very first Shabbos. And we use a singular form, or ha'ish, because the flame provides only one light. But according to Beis Hillel, you don't say created, but you say the current form, the present form, because Bore, the present form, also refers to the past, and it's also plural because several colors can be seen in the fire. You have the red, you have yellow, you have the blue, the white, sometimes blue-green, depending on the fire. So that's Bore Me'ori Ha'ish, which is the plural. Okay, Mishnah Vav. You cannot make a bracha on the fire or on the spices of an idol worshiper, because more than likely those spices and that candle, certainly the wine, was used for idol worship, and therefore you cannot use that. Lo al haner, lo al habesamim shabesim, and flames, like candles or besamim that were like put around like a dead body, as you see sometimes like these vigils that the non-Jews have. You can't use those those things because they were not intended to provide light, but to honor the nifter. And they were also not intended to give off a good smell. Rather, it was to cover up the mace's bad smell. That's why you put all the spices and scents. And we cannot recite the bracha on the flame or the spices that have been placed in front of an avodah zarah. We just finished Masechtas Avodah Zarah. It's all discussed over there. But if you had a statue, you had an avodah zarah, you cannot make a bracha on the fire the candles or the seven that are placed in front of the statue. That's usher. And aim mevarch ma'al haner ad shia osel oro. One more detail about fire, about the flame is that we cannot recite the bracha on the flame until benefit is received from its light. So, so the Rishonim say that that the best that you make a bracha on the fire when you're looking at a coin. But who has coins in their pockets? Their pockets Motzi Shabbos because you wouldn't have any coins in your pocket the whole day. It was muksa. So that's why you look at your fingertips, and if you can see the light on the fingertips, then that was benefiting from the light. Kabbalistically, we know that that you look at your fingertips because the material of the fingertips, that was the original skin that Adam and Chava had before the chet of the Yitzie, and after the chet, their bodies transformed into what we have as skin now, and the former skin was relegated to the fingernails and the toenails. And that's a remnant of Kodam Achet. So you look at it, Moshe Shabbos as a zecher to that. Mi Mishnah Zayin, Misha Achal, V'Shachach, Lo Veirach. Continuing with Brachos Hamazon, what happens if someone ate a meal and forgot and did not recite Brachos Hamazon and he left the place that he ate? Shammai Yachzor and Komo V'Yavarach. Shammai says you must return to your place where you ate and recite Brachos Hamazon there. With Hillel Amrim Yavarach B'Makom Sheniska. With Hillel says that he may bench in the place where he remembered. So see, he's not required to return. This is one of the places which is where Beis Shammai is more machmir than Beis Hillel, because Beis Hillel says you can say whatever you want. Interesting. The argument to Beis Shammai in favor of Beis Shammai is if so the shaila came up like if someone was at the top of the mount, the top of the Empire State Building, or some very tall building, and he had a suit up there, and he forgot to bench it. He came back down. Does he have to go back up or not? So he was countered with a question, and I asked him, if you have left like a bag of gold, a bag of money at the top of the Empire State Building, you left your wallet upstairs. Did you go back for it? He says, of course. So he says, so for your covered, you go back up, and for a Brachos covered, you won't. Of course, you have to go back upstairs. If you're gonna say, "Oh, forget it, I'm not going back for my wallet, forget about it," then okay, fine. I was once on a trip, and we took a boat out to an island, and I used my bank card to take out some cash from an ATM machine, and it's like 4:30 in the afternoon. And I get back to the boat, and the boat's on the water going back to the mainland, wherever we were. And I realized that I don't have my bank card. I must have left it in the ATM machine. Like I was not going back. I called the bank, canceled the card. I didn't have any problems, but I was not. There was no way that I was going back to get that card. That card was as good as gone. I had no way of getting back there. But if you would go back to retrieve that physical item, then of course you should go back and bench according to Beis Shammai. Until when can someone bench? How much time can I pass for a person to still be hired to bench? I kadesh is akel a Muslim should be made until the food in the stomach has been digested. And once the food is digested, which is usually about 72 minutes, depending on the size of your meal, once the food is digested, then you can't bench anymore on that meal. And finally, for today, Mishnah Ches, Balahem Yain Lacha Mazon Ve'ein Sham Ela Osakos. So, does Brachos Hamazon have to be recited over a cup of wine? So, if wine was brought to them after the meal, there's no wine available but this one cup of wine, what do you do? this is not just for Shabbos, this is for the whole week. Bais Shammai says, Mevarich al hayayin lachach, mevarich al hamazon. One may recite the bracha on the wine and drink it, and then recite Brachos without wine, because you don't necessarily have to have to say Brachos over a cup of wine. It's nice, but it's not a chiyuv to do that every day of the week. The Beis Hillel says, Mevarich al yayin lachach, sorry, mevarich al hamazon, lachach mevarich al yayin. First, you recite Brachos Hamazon, and then you make the bracha on the wine. Because it was requires a cup of wine, so you bench on the coast, and then you make the bracha break afterwards. And then we'll finish up with this. On Onin Amin Achi Yisrael Mivarech, that one should answer Amin after a blessing from a Jew. Acharakusi Mivarech, but after a blessing from a kusi, sorry, I messed up it. The ain onin amin acher kusi mivarech, but you do not say amen after a bracha from a kusi, and sheyish makol bracha, unless you hear the entire bracha, because perhaps he's saying the bracha for the avodah zarah, and therefore that's a problem to say amen to that bracha. Furthermore, certainly if you heard an idol worshiper say a bracha over their idol, then that you definitely cannot say amen to. The Rishonim talk about the status of Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. So we say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo on brachos that we don't need to be Yotzi on. So let's say by the Kiyah Shofar, by Kriyas Megillah, and by the morning brachos of the first day of Shavuos when you're up all night. So generally, we do not say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo during those brachos because we want to be Yotzi with the Baal Tefillah, with the Baal Tekeya, with the Baal Koreh on his brachos, each of those circumstances, and therefore we do not say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. The briskers have a minhag that by Chazar Shatz, that not only do they do not say Baruch Hu Shemo at all, because the Chazar Shatz is part of our tefillah as well, and therefore we need to be yotzi with the Batfila's tefillah. Furthermore, they would even stand the entire time with their feet together, while the Batfila is saying the Chazar Shatz as a chumrah, because for that very same reason. Anyway, that is the end of Perek. Tomorrow is the final Perek of Masechet Brachos, Perek Tes. And just a reminder that we are starting a raffle this coming Sunday. To enter the raffle, you need to have one of three things, or two or three ways to get a raffle ticket. You get more than one. One is to learn the Perek each day with us, if all 6 days, and confirm that you did it. 2 is to do Chazara on Shabbos, and confirm that you did that too. And 3 is to bring someone else into the group, into the shir, and tell us what their name is so we can welcome them. Together we can all steig in Torah and grow the shir, be marvelous Torah to more of Klal Yisrael. Have a wonderful day, and